Welcome learners to the SWAM portal. I'm Dr. Anju Mehmed, Assistant Professor of the Department of Education, Aligarh Muslim University. Today, we'll be discussing about the elements of effective environmental education programs. This is Module 8 of the Week 2 program. By the end of this module, you will be able to identify the objectives laid down by Tbilisi Declaration related to environmental education, understand the behavioral component of environmental education, analyze the key role of stakeholders in environmental education program, comprehend the important elements required for an effective functioning of the environmental education program, apply the guiding principles of effective environmental education program in any education institution. To begin with, we have to look at the historical development. For this, in the year 1997, the world's first intergovernmental conference on environmental education was held in Tbilisi, Georgia. Building on the Belgrade Charter, representatives at the Tbilisi conference adopted the Tbilisi Declaration, which challenged environmental education to create awareness and values amongst humankind in order to improve the qualities of life and the environment. Now, coming to the objectives laid down by this declaration, the first and foremost is the awareness. The awareness should help individuals or social groups acquire sensitivity and awareness related to the total environment and its allied problems. Number 2, knowledge. To help individuals or social groups gain a variety of experience in and acquire a basic understanding of the environment and problems associated with it. Number 3, attitudes. To help individuals or social groups acquire a set of values and feelings of concern for the environment and the motivation for actively participating in environmental improvement and protection. Next, skills. To help individuals or social groups acquire the skills for identifying and solving environmental problems. Next, participation. To provide individuals or social groups with an opportunity to be actively involved at all levels in working towards resolution of environmental problems. Environmental education is not the presentation of information. Environmental education helps learners achieve environmental literacy, which has attitude and behavior components in addition to a knowledge component. The first question that should come in your mind is, who are the learners and educators in environmental education? This is an interesting image in which the Tbilisi Declaration has been portrayed as the root of this tree, in which knowledge, awareness and sensitivity, skills, participation and action, attitude and values are the key learning outcomes that should be maintained to improve the quality of the environment. The main trunk, that is the teaching and learning process, in which the individuals will learn in, about and for the environment that will shape their attitudes and values right from the early childhood to adulthood. The green leaves of the tree is denoted by the sensitivity through the values, sensitivity through the culture. It will not only promote awareness about and for the environmental through personal commitment and action, it is also the entire overall aims of environmental education. Know your audience. This is a very well-known piece of advice for anyone undertaking a responsibility of formulating an environmental education program. To provide high quality of environmental education, educators must understand the many contexts in which environmental education can occur and the diversity of the learners it can reach to. In order for environmental education to be efficacious, it needs to be imparted both formally, non-formally and informally. Otherwise, it ceases to be attractive and loses its effect. It becomes just like any other textbook one has to read and answer the questions. We can reach the audience through the typical setting of the formal education system. The formal education promotes formal learning, where it has a well-defined and systematic curriculum. This type of formal education is given to students in school, colleges, and universities. The medium of imparting environmental education through formal education, it is not only through books, but can also be given through hand-on experience in field-related activities. Education that takes place outside the formal learning environment is known as the non-formal education. It is flexible, learner-centered, believes in egalitarian relationship. This type of non-formal education typically takes place in the community settings like club activities, zoos, museum, exhibition, and for environmental education, we can have separate eco clubs, seminars, reading groups, and debating societies. Informal learning, which is also known as experiential learning, which takes place outside the formal setting and arises from the learner's involvement in activities that he undertakes without any inclination of learning purpose in his mind. Learners can be divided into three broad developmental categories. Early childhood, the second category is from kindergarten to higher education, and the third category is adult general public. No matter where or how an environmental education program takes place, the educator must always ask the relevant question: what do the learners hope to get out of this program? In other words, the learning outcomes of the environmental education program. For this, I would like to highlight what Canadian Environmental Education Organization has talked about the excellent qualities that should be imbibed in the environmental education program. It should be reputable, credible, and based on solid facts. The values, assumptions, and biases should be made explicitly clear, should create knowledge and understanding about economic, ecological, social, political concepts, and demonstrate the interdependence among them. The program should also involve a cycle of continuous improvement in the process of design, delivery, evaluation, and redesign. It should provide creative learning hand-on experiences which are learner-centered, where students teach each other and educators are mentors and facilitators. These experiences paves way to higher order thinking and provide a cooperative context for learning and evaluation. Moreover, the program should be deeply rooted in a real-world context. It encourages practical out-of-door experiences and through the practice of an environmental ethics. Like the environmental itself, effective programs should transcend curricular boundaries, striving to integrate traditional subject areas and the disciplines. It should cater the need of all learning styles so that it creates exciting and enjoyable learning situations. It promotes lifelong learning and celebrates the beauty of nature. Examining the environmental problems and issues is another aspect that was highlighted, and it should be in an inclusive manner. That means it should include social, moral, and ethical dimensions, which promotes values clarification and is respectful of the diversity of values that exist in our society. Allowing students to develop strategies for responsible citizenship by motivating and empowering them through the inculcation of specific action skills. Through the application of the knowledge and skills, they work cooperatively towards a resolution of any environmental problem or issues. Moreover, the program also highlights that to engage the learner in a long-term mentoring relationships, it transforms them as they examine their personal values, feelings, attitudes, and behavior. Promotes an understanding of the past, a sense of the present, and a positive vision for the future. Developing a sense of commitment in the learner to help create a healthier environment and a sustainable future. The North American Association for Environmental Education, NAAEE, has given some guidelines for excellence in 1996, and they have highlighted three important points. The first is the factual accuracy. Materials should reflect sound theories and well-documented facts. Second is the balanced representation of different viewpoints and theories. Differences of opinion and competing scientific explanation should be presented in a balanced way. And the third important guideline is openness to inquiry. Materials should encourage students to explore different perspectives and form their own opinion. While talking about the effective environmental education program, I should also like to highlight what Athman and Monroe in 2001 has given some guiding principles for effective educational programs. They have specified that it should be relevant to the mission of the agency or organization, to the educational objectives of the audience, and to the everyday lives of the individual learners. The objective is beyond information dispersal. It involves working with an audience that often has defined learning objectives. The second important part it talks about is how it involves stakeholders in all the stages of the program, from the development of the program to its evaluation. And another important point that while selecting the team members, we have to make sure that the team members are enthusiastic, willing to represent his or her group, willing to commit to the project is very vital for effective execution of the program. The programs empowers learners with skills to help prevent, address environmental issues and with a sense of personal and civic responsibility. But awareness and knowledge alone do not make a program an environmental program. And when considering the goal of environmental education literacy, it should bring about behavioral change in the learner. Every environmental education programs ought to be accurate and balanced, incorporating multiple perspectives and interdisciplinary aspects. Lastly, the programs on environmental education should be instructionally sound using best practices in education. In order for environmental education program to be effective in an educational way, they must also be congruent with the way people learn. For this, I would like to highlight what Piaget and how his theory has identified 4 cognitive stages through which an individual may progress from birth through adolescence: sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete operational, and formal operational stage. This sequence is invariantly ordered, and some refer to these stages respectively as the active child, the intuitive students, the practical student, and the reflective student. Many programs provide learners with choices, as learners tend to choose learning experiences appropriate for their cognitive structures. Applied to environmental education, curricula should be developed so that they facilitate stage-relevant thinking and allow students to discover for themselves the logical connections between object and events. To conclude this module, one of the biggest challenges that educators face is now to effectively get their points across and to illustrate why what they are teaching is important. Environmental education is of great importance, and there needs to be a way to effectively educate people about the environmental concern that can affect them on a daily basis.